The day started like any other in the quiet suburbs of Cedar Grove, a small American town where everybody seemed to know each other's names and habits. The morning sun shone through the tall oak trees, casting long shadows across the Miller family's front yard. Inside their home, Sarah Miller stood in the living room with her arms full of old cardboard boxes. She had decided that today was the day she would finally tackle the attic, the one place in the house that had remained untouched since her late husband passed away years earlier. Her son, Jacob Miller, a 23-year-old graduate student, had come home for the weekend to help her around the house. Jacob had always been close to his mother, but since his father's death, an invisible gap had formed between them. He admired her strength, but, sometimes worried, she kept too much inside. Sarah had always been the type to hide her pain, preferring to carry burdens alone rather than let others see her struggle. That morning, Jacob had gone for a jog around the neighborhood. He came back, sweaty and tired, to find the front door open and his mother's voice drifting down from the attic. He kicked off his shoes, took a sip of water, and headed upstairs. When he pushed open the attic door, Jacob froze. He had expected to find his mother dusting off old furniture, maybe sorting through photo albums. Instead, he saw Sarah kneeling beside a trunk, her hands trembling as she pulled out his father's military uniform. Tears streamed silently down her face. Jacob was shocked. He had never seen his mother cry like that, not even at the funeral. She always insisted on being strong for him, for the family. He didn't know what to say, but his sudden presence startled Sarah. She turned, her eyes wide with surprise, caught in a moment she never wanted her son to see. "Mom," Jacob whispered, his voice breaking. Sarah inhaled sharply, then let out a shaky laugh through her tears. "I guess you weren't supposed to see me like this." But instead of hiding the uniform back in the trunk or brushing off her tears, she allowed him to step into that moment with her. For the first time in years, she let her guard down. She allowed him to see her pain, her grief, and her vulnerability. Jacob walked slowly into the attic, his heart heavy. He sat beside her and placed a hand on her shoulder. "You don't always have to be strong for me, Mom," he said gently. "I miss Dad too." Those words unlocked something in Sarah. She leaned against him, and together they sat in silence, surrounded by boxes of memories, photographs, letters, keepsakes, and the faint smell of old wood and dust. That afternoon became the beginning of something neither of them expected. Sarah allowed Jacob to help her go through the things she had avoided for years. Each box told a story. Each photograph brought back a memory. Some moments were painful, others joyful, but they faced them together. Jacob found letters his father had written from overseas, filled with hope and love. Sarah shared stories about his father's bravery, his humor, and even his clumsy mistakes that always made her laugh. For Jacob, who had been young when his father passed, it was like meeting him all over again through his mother's words. As the day turned into evening, Sarah realized she had underestimated her son. She had always thought she needed to protect him from her sorrow, but in truth, sharing it brought them closer. Jacob, in turn, felt a deeper connection to both his mother and the father he wished he'd known better. The following weeks became a quiet transformation in their lives. Jacob started visiting more often, not just out of obligation, but because he wanted to be there for his mother. Sarah, too, began to allow herself moments of openness she had once avoided. She attended community gatherings again, laughed more easily, and even joined a local book club. One night, while they sat on the porch watching the stars, Jacob said, "Mom, that day in the attic, it changed something for me. I always thought you were unbreakable, but seeing you like that showed me how strong you really are." Sarah smiled softly. Sometimes allowing others to see your weakness is the strongest thing you can do. The title of their story, "Son Was Shocked When He Saw Me, and I Allowed Him," was no longer about embarrassment or secrecy. It was about permission. Sarah had allowed her son to see her humanity, her brokenness, and her healing. And in doing so, she had given him the greatest gift, the truth. Their bond grew deeper, and the attic that had once been filled with dust and silence became a place of light, memories, and conversation. They turned the space into a small family museum, a tribute to the man who had been a husband, a father, and a hero. Friends and family who visited the Miller home found themselves drawn to the attic, where Sarah and Jacob would tell stories, laugh, and sometimes cry. The shock Jacob felt that day became the seed of understanding, and the allowance Sarah gave became the bridge between past and present. Together, they discovered that healing doesn't come from hiding pain but from sharing it with those who love us most. And so, their lives continued, messy, beautiful, imperfect, but honest.